Hello everyone, this is Jhajharia and today we have with us Ayush Krishna. So Ayush has got AIR 6 in the recently conducted examination of Indian Forest Services, which just happened in February. So we welcome Ayush to our viewers. We want you to impart some of your experiences, I hope, in this interview.
Thank you, Vikas, for inviting me on this platform. I would like to share my experiences. Thank you.
So Ayush, let's begin with the Indian Forest Service examination because the mains is going to be held in about 42 days. So I can see your mark sheet here, and you got AIR 6, which is a huge achievement. I would like to congratulate you for that. And I'm just looking at your mark sheet, and I can see some really unique trends and some really interesting things which I want to ask you about. For example, the general English paper, I'll begin with it because people are preparing for their optional papers currently, and you have got 147 in general English paper. So how did you prepare for that?
I will very briefly tell you how I prepare general English. So almost uh, 3-4 days I have given for general English. In that, what I did that previous year question of forest services as well as for civil services examination. I took idioms and phrases from all those examination. Also, there are IES examination and some other in which is conducted by UPSC. So I took idioms and phrases from those examination. I uh, gone through them, and otherwise I did not do much because the formats are very much important. And the one advice which you can take is like you have to see the format just before going into the examination, because usually people don't write before the examination. If you write, that is good, but when you are entering the examination hall, because it may happen that you will forget by date we are going to write right or left. So these are the few things which I would like to share. So basic focal point should be the previous year question would be sufficient for English.
So Ayush, generally people get like the scoring in English paper is from 120 to 182. So you say that you have scored in the above average, I would say, above average spectrum, and more than above average, I would say. So you spent 3 days, 3.5 days,
Yes.
because you are AIR 6. We want like everybody to know that just spending 3.5 days on English paper can get you about 150, which is a very, very decent score. So the next thing, Ayush, I would like to ask you is about the forestry paper, which is very common. Most of the people are having forestry. So how did you prepare for your forestry paper? Like in the last 42 days, what would be your advice for everybody?
So, forestry, I took advice from a few of my friends who helped me, particularly Sumit, who is already an officer, and Yaksh also. So, I took advice from them because they have guided me, because I had no clue how to start the forestry. So, my first thing was ki what to read and what not to read. So, these things were catered by these two people mostly. And apart from that, I started with Manikandan book. But I could not understand because it is a very bulky book, and I thought ki it may take much time. So after spending 1 week on that book, I switched to Hornbill classes. And after that, I totally followed Hornbill classes in terms of notes, lectures, and everything. But after following that, I thought ki because there are so many scientific names and there are so many diagrams which you have to make, so I made my own notes. So that note making helped me a lot, and I did not practice test papers because I had no time. And mostly this is common with everyone, because they don't have time and they have to prepare whole optional at one go. So these are the few things which I started forestry with.
So Ayush, you talk about making notes out of the readings that you did regarding the forestry papers. So can you throw some light on that particular aspect? So how do you make notes, and what should you be having in mind while making notes about the forestry paper?
So one interesting thing which I found, which I also share with other people, that many people have seen this, that in the front of the paper, it is written that neat sketches will be, matlab you have to make neat sketches wherever required. So I thought this line very much interesting, because if the question paper is itself telling that you have to make sketches, then in any question if you make, you will be getting awards. So I made sure that in every question I will be making diagrams, and so that with that perception I made notes. So in my notes I have full of diagrams. So my focus was to, in three parts I made diagram. One is like concepts, another is definitions, one is keywords, and one is diagram. Fourth. So I have separated these notes in this way. So I have very quick reckoner. If I want to go through the keywords, I quickly go through I have gone through the keyword just before entering the examination hall. So I have a diagram page, I will just go to the diagrams. I have definition page, so I just go to the diagram. definition. So these things which I did, so these were the things which I kept in mind.
That was really good insight to have. You are saying that keywords, diagrams, and concepts you made
Yeah, separately.
very crisp notes of.
Yeah.
And so Ayush, one more thing, that one of my friends who is in the academy right now, he told me last year that he used three pens, like one green, one black, and one blue. So, and he said that it paid off. So, like, did you use two pens, black and blue?
So
Or
I use three, and
you use three?
yeah, and in every diagram, for example, there are, when anyone who is studying for it, they know that canopy structure, we have three structures, four structures. So it was like, even if you are making tree a little smaller and you are not able to identify, but when you say green, you are making green is like higher canopy, this is diseased or this is truncated. So it very reflect, yes, I by the color code I am able to see, even if the height is not good, even that does not matter. So I totally agree that green color paid off.
So
Yes.
Ashok told me this, that which is very rare knowledge in the people who are appearing for. Last time I also appeared for the forest service examination. So that time he told me this, and he said that it is very rare, but this pays off really well. So you, the viewers, should be taking a note of it. So you are the second person who is telling me that you use three pens.
Yeah.
This is very unique in the UPSC paper. Ayush, one more thing, like people have written just the CSE mains, and what happens in the CSE mains is that they are not able to complete the paper in time. So is it like, for somebody who is appearing for the first time in forestry, like people are not able to do mock tests, etc. So is it so in any paper of forestry, GK, or like the English paper?
So when I talk about forestry papers, so I don't think you will be having time crunch in forestry, because when your focus is to make diagrams also, so that is sufficient enough to fill your paper and very beautifully presented. So in any of the forestry papers of IFS exam, I did not feel the time is an issue. But if you give an insight about the CSE paper, so I think I have myself left few questions in GS4, so I don't know about it.
So this is very interesting. Ayush last year scored I think 107 in ethics
Yes.
in this year only.
Yes.
And
January, yeah.
January the paper, and it was a very decent score, given that scores were very like minimal this time. The average the people who were getting into the list, they were also getting something similar. And this year the same guy has left like two case studies. So even if like you are somebody who has written the CSE mains this time, so you should not worry. Even the best in the business are basically struggling with the ethics paper. It was difficult. So moving on to the forestry paper now. So the Indian Forest Service paper now. So Ayush, one more thing about the general knowledge part.
Yeah.
So you are preparing, like you had physics as an optional and forestry as an optional. So in the last 42 days, I would like to understand from you how much time we should be giving for like GK, like you told about the English part. So in that order, can you please tell?
Yeah, my example might not be the good one, because most of the time I was doing physics and forestry. So for GK paper, I only devoted 1.5 days. It may sound something different, but because I did not have time and I wanted to. So what I did for the GK, I just went through the papers and I got to know there are a few questions that are being repeated. For example, I would give the Bhakti moment is there, Aurangzeb, Akbar, Sher Suri, and in history these things are repeated every 1-2 years. So I prepare a note of that in one day, few questions. And another section which I targeted was science and technology. In that also I targeted only the biotech part. And also this time also it came BT technology. And so I had exact keywords which I will be using, and diagram. So these two things I prepared from the GK. Otherwise I only revised DPSP, preamble, those basic things that you can just take before the examination hall you can do. So these are the only things which I did for GK.
So this is very unique that you got 151 in the general knowledge paper. And this is very interesting also, because Ayush, whenever we talk to him, he always focuses on previous year question analysis and basically finding out trends, and he's very good at it. I can tell you with my experiences with him. So Ayush, like how much important it is for like even if you talk about the physics optional and for forestry, so is it also similarly important that you see the previous year questions and you solve them? Can you throw some light on that?
Let's go one by one. For physics optional, what I did in CSE, I did not perform well. So I was having a knack ki I have to solve the paper.
Hmm.
So before physics paper, I solved 13 previous year question full length in time. In 3
Okay.
hours, I made sure that I am going to solve these papers.
Okay.
So what I did for physics, I did not revise notes. Revise notes as in only when I have given the test, I will revise the concept. कि यार मैं ये भूल गया हूँ, so what will be the thing? So for physics, my total focus was 13 papers, which fetched me the marks. And when I go through forestry, to be very clear, I very seriously took two subjects. Very silviculture, that is one. It is almost, for me, I think it is 30% of the syllabus, because when you understand silviculture, you understand silviculture of trees and every other thing. So I did very seriously silviculture of trees PYQ. And another question, mangroves and deserts. You also know that every year mangroves and cold deserts question are coming in NTFP. So these questions which are coming every year, I took I remembered those things very particular from the PYQs, but I did not write any.
So Ayush, you might not like give it a name, but that is what we call active recall method, where you solve the question first and then see the answer, and that's what you did, which is like scientifically proven best method of basically retaining information as well as retaining the trend in which you are going to perform in the examination.
So I would just like, well, mostly what happens is like we think that we will read something and will then write. I think write then read, because one who have once studied, because otherwise reading will never end, for what I can understand.
So that on that point we definitely agree, Ayush. And moving on, you have got some really decent marks in the interview as well. 192 you got, although people are preparing for the main stage right now. But can you how did you prepare for the forestry interview in particular?
For interview, it was my schedule was very hectic, because 5th June was prelims, 6th June was my BPSC interview, and 15th June was my UPSC interview.
Okay.
So it was, I have to do the prelims. So for interview, I took help from my friends. For example, I told my friend Ashby to read the transcripts and give me what questions are being repeated. So in forestry interview, if you see, there are few question man-animal conflict. You'll get to know that again. This is PYQ in terms of interview as well. Few questions you can predict. Otherwise, also you also know that interview is a very dynamic thing. So not very particularly I prepared, but I relied on what questions should I know. For example, Wildlife Protection Act. So these were the few things which I got to know from her analysis.
Okay, so Ayush, you whenever I talk to you, you always talk about the fact that you delegate a few things, like you delegated the previous year question analysis to her sister, and then she gave you some fodder from the previous year questions regarding the grammar part, etc. And you also talk about how your friends Yaksh and Sumit, I think, they helped you and they guided you in the last 40-50 days. And so how much important it is to be guided and to be knowing that somebody who has already scored better is telling you this, so you must follow this.
So I will tell you subject wise what happens. Yes, I have extremely good friend and family. My sister obviously gave me the answer of all the idioms and phrases, and I made sure that all the idioms this time came from her notes. I will also share that, because everything. Now when I come through GS GK paper, I took help of my friend Ashvi. Now when I came from forestry optional, Yaksh and Sumit told me कि भाई ये chapter पढ़ ले, इससे नहीं आता है. For example, ट्राइबोलॉजी से अब क्वेश्चन नहीं आता, हो सकता है कल से आ जाए, पर पॉइंट है कि अब तक नहीं आया, तो आई वुड नॉट गिव टाइम. सो दीज वर द थिंग्स व्हिच आई टुक हेल्प फ्रॉम ऑल दिस. सो आई थिंक when you have someone to guide, it's very much important, because these 40 days, initially 5 days, I missed it because I read the chapter, I could not understand. But if you have someone in this 40 days, this is very much important. And this service is very rewarding in terms of the effort which you are giving, because this 40 day can change things. I really feel that, because I have no idea about forestry. I literally start from scratch. I did not even see the syllabus. Most of the people are like that. So I think if you have someone who can guide you, it is the best thing that you can have at this point of time.
And you are getting the all India services, 150 seats this time, and 42 days. Last year it was 40 days and you prepared in 40 days. So I think you can help some of our viewers if you can find some time. We will basically try and get connected with him in terms of guiding you in some way or the other.